So I want to get back to something like we talked about it briefly earlier, and you kind of mentioned something and glossed past it a little bit. So I want to go back to it. We were talking about the struggles of Keegan Murray. Said even De'Aaron, and I think there was a clip of Mike Brown over the weekend. It's like essentially we're not concerned about it, which is 100% the absolute right thing to say. But let's point a couple of things out. He's had single-digit points in 4 of the last 5 games and 8 of the last 11. But he scored double-digit points in the first 5 games of the season, 4 of which he came off the bench. Now, with people asking about, or suggesting, what if you put Keegan back on the bench? Maybe it's more effective there. I think there's a number of things to consider. Is Keegan Murray being on the bench the reason the team was 0-4? Because he comes in and he's in the starting lineup. He plays different, but the team is winning. That's probably a stretch, but it's a fair question to ask. Why so quick to say, no, you can't put Keegan Murray back on the bench? Because you said who, and you talked about disrupting things. Couldn't you just go back to KZ Okpala?
I mean, I guess in theory, yes, you could. But I think
it doesn't affect his minutes, because in those first 4 games, Keegan played a ton of minutes. It's not like he was playing. He was probably playing more minutes then than he is now in his recent struggles. So, it's not that he's still on the floor. He's still on the floor at key moments. If he's playing well, you're still using KZ Okpala in the starting lineup relatively sparingly. Why do you think it wouldn't? Or let me not ask you why you think it wouldn't work. Why do you think that's not a direction they should look at?
Okay, so I'll answer it this way. Like, first of all, I don't think anyone is saying what their solution is for Keegan Murray in the starting lineup. What I've seen is a lot of people saying, "Oh, you got to bench him. You got to bench him."
Mm-hmm.
So it's not that you've got to bench him because somebody else is playing better. It's you've got to bench him because he's not playing well. And I mean, so those are slightly different distinctions, right? And there isn't someone who's jumped up and been so incredibly impressive that they need to go to some other direction. And I guess we could point to even a Terrence Davis as a starting
Mm-hmm.
small forward and sliding Harrison Barnes over. But then who else loses in that? Because someone else will lose in that, conversation. Someone else is going to have to go to the bench because Terrence Davis wasn't part of the rotation before. Either way, I think you're at a really delicate position with Keegan Murray where confidence is an issue and you don't want to have a kid lose his confidence completely. I think that maybe he would be better suited coming off the bench because he would get more opportunities. But even that in itself is what kind of confidence, how much more confidence can you take from somebody, and would moving him to the bench in this situation hurt him? Yeah, I don't know what the solution is, and it's kind of, it's funny. Fans clamor for him to start. Oh, he's got to start. He's got to start. He's got to start. Then he doesn't. He starts and he does really good initially, but then he starts to fade. And now fans are clamoring for him to go to the bench, and so there's always, and that's why it's best that Mike Brown makes these decisions. We can talk about them, and
not
we can.
Kings fan 32971 on Twitter.
Yes, exactly. It should not be him or one of the other many people that come at you hey, he's got to go to the bench. It's I don't know what the answer is. You have to.
It's probably just play through it, isn't it?
Just play through it. Most likely, it's just to try to keep boosting his confidence, try to get him involved early. But then you also have to get Harrison Barnes involved early, and we're still talking about the fact that Domantas Sabonis doesn't shoot enough shots, and so there's always going to be this balance where someone is left out behind. And I know you guys love Terrence Davis and wish he played 25 minutes a game every night, maybe more. But at the same time, there are certain games where it's not going to work.
Yeah, and we do love Terrence Davis, but I also wish he was as effective as he was against Brooklyn every night.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And,
Yeah.
and Terrence, unfortunately, is in one of those positions where if you're not having, and obviously the Brooklyn is the extreme case, but if you're not having a really good night, you're probably going to be short on the minutes list.
Yeah.
And this is one thing I actually really, really like about Mike Brown that we've seen through the first part of this season is if you're playing well, he's going to play you. He's not, hey, I'm going to put Terrence in for a couple of minutes so and so can rest, and then I'm going to take them out no matter what. It's like, all right, let's make a move here. Hey, TD, get in there, do what you got to do, get in there. And if Terrence plays well, or any player in his position plays well, they stay there. Mm-hmm. They stay out there, and Mike runs with it. He goes with the hot hand, which is something. One, I think it speaks to the closeness of this team, that it can vary on a night to night basis. It can be Malik and Trey. You mentioned the Atlanta game where Malik Monk and Trey Lyles had really big nights. Trey's kind of in the similar boat to Terrence Davis, where if it's not really working for him, he's not going to play that night. There was consecutive games, and I can't remember which ones they were. He played 29 minutes one night, and then I think he played 4.5 the next game.
Yeah. And
that's Mike said, hey, I'm gonna ride the hot hand. And I think I love that style of coaching. I love that non-robotic way of, it's 6 minutes left, get Terrence out and put, Kevin Huerter back in, or Harrison, or whoever.
This is why I kept telling everyone they have, it's either going to be an 8.5 or 9.5 man rotation. And there's going to be someone who loses. There's going to be two players that share a bench position, and it can be two totally different players. And at this point, you're right. It's probably Trey Lyles and Terrence Davis. If one of them is hot in the first half, they're going to get a second look. If one of them has a horrible first half, maybe they don't get a second look, especially if it's bad on the defensive end. If it's just missing shots, which Trey Lyles has done that a couple of times, where he started off slow, and then all of a sudden in the third quarter, he heats up, and you're like, okay, this is working.
Mike will ride missed shots, though.
Yeah, he will. Yeah,
he won't ride a missed defensive assignment.
Exactly. Yeah. No, he won't allow that. And that's where I think Terrence, more often than not, has been the guy who walks onto the court, and the first thing he does is miss a defensive assignment. Mm-hmm. And it's a focus thing. It's not
Mike calls timeout.
And then Mike calls a timeout and says, hey, look, man, you do it again, and I'm not going to play you the rest of the night. It's one of those things where he needs to make sure he's walking into a game mentally ready to go every single time.
Keegan's made 2 shots in the last 3 games.
Yeah, it's not great, Bob. Yeah. I mean, it is what it is. You're hoping he pulls out of it.
Is that? He was 1 of 8 twice, and then 0 of 5 in between.
It is 3 points, and his 3-pointers are bad.
I don't know. I don't know what the answer is. Past, play through it. I
think
that's tough.
The answer is if you're his teammate, is to keep putting your arm around him. And I asked Aaron Fox about this today. I said, you're a guy who is outwardly said you were not good as a rookie. He has said that multiple times, especially when it came to Tyrese Halliburton. He always said, man, Tyrese is so much better than I was as a rookie. I said, have you put your arm around him and said, hey, I had these struggles too? And he said, yeah, we're all having conversations. And the key is to not let somebody lose their confidence, because if they lose their confidence and they stop shooting, then that's even worse. We need him to keep shooting. We need him to keep trying to do what he usually does. And eventually he'll lock back in, and he'll find his way.
It's probably important too to be kind of sporadic with those conversations as well. You don't want to inundate him with, De'Aaron said this, Sabonis said this, Mike says this, Doug says this, Jay says this. It's okay, it's almost like you got a quick huddle. Who wants to talk to Keegan today? Because you don't want to have a bunch of, because that probably adds an extra layer of pressure to him. And that's just the absolute last thing that you want for him to deal with. Because I think that's been one of the good things about this team. Obviously, the last 2 losses are pretty tough, but perhaps Keegan hits a shot against Atlanta, things can swing in a direction, but no one's pointing at the Atlanta loss going, man, if Keegan had just done this, it would have been different. No one's looking at Keegan Murray as if he's the reason behind a 36-4 run that the Boston Celtics went on. So you have a lot of leeway with him, because one of the pluses to Keegan Murray was supposed to be there's not going to be a ton of pressure on him. That pressure's on De'Aaron Fox's shoulders. It's on Domantas Sabonis' shoulders. It's on Mike Brown's shoulders. Kevin Huerter has performed well. he's on the pecking order above Keegan Murray. Malik Monk, you could probably make the argument that he is too, and that creates that should create a less stressful environment for Keegan Murray. As frustrated as he may be with his play, having too many people in his ear could be equally as problematic.
Yeah, I mean, you want someone to feel comfortable and to have like honest discussions with people. And I'll point out Trey Lyles has been ruled out for tonight with a non-COVID related illness. So he is not available. Chima Moneki is questionable with a right side soreness, not thornus. There we go. And then Keon Ellis and Neemias Queta are both on G League assignments. But yeah,
we're going to talk about Neemias Queta, by the way.
Yeah,
just putting that out there in the universe.
You don't want to like freak out about it. It's almost like the same thing with KZ Okpala. Like whatever KZ Okpala got you on the offensive end was like bonus. It was like found money, right? And I think people forget that, like, sure, he gave you like really good defensive moments, but it was also because you were able to put him on like a variety of players. I don't think we've seen a ton of horrible moments from Keegan Murray on the defensive end. I think overall he's been solid. And that's kind of one of the interesting pieces to him is that he kind of just blends in to whatever's happening. He'll figure it out, and you just have to like keep bolstering him, keep making sure that like even like today, I'm not sure that if I'm media that I would have said, yeah, you can talk to Keegan. Make us wait for him after a game or something. And
was Keegan available this morning?
Yeah, we talked to Keegan. Oh. We talked to him this morning, but I don't know that. Like, again, I think he's in his own head a little bit, and he's a young guy and things aren't going well. He's got the off the court stuff with his grandma. I know his dad was with them on the trip, which is really, really good for him to have that family support, but he's kind of been on an island and it's really tough. People forget, like, DeMarcus Cousins came to Sacramento. He didn't have his driver's license. Nick Stauskas came to Sacramento, didn't have his driver's license. They had to teach him how to drive in the old Arco parking lot. Like, these are kids. They've never paid an apartment bill. They've never paid for PG&E or a cell phone bill on their own or anything else. Like, there's so much going on in their head that when things go bad on the court, which is usually their safe space, it snowballs super quick. So I think he'll be fine.
Okay. Let's hope he be's fine tonight, because with Trey Lyles out, it feels like they're gonna need someone to step in.